As Tom just said, my name is Frank Kravchuk, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about my river trail project, which I'm calling the Restore Ocklawaha River Trail Experience. Just to get started with my agenda, I'm going to go ahead and go over my statement of intent, my goals and objectives, the river trail terminology before diving into the Restored Ocklawaha River Trail Experience, and then wrapping up to my closing. So I'm going to go ahead and give a brief introduction about the Ocklawaha, which some of our classmates have done already, and also what's at stake. Just briefly before I dive into my statement of intent, I was able to talk with Teresa from the Ocklawaha River Outpost, and multiple people have brought this up where during a drawdown, use of the river increases quite a bit. A lot more people will go downstream for the rest of the river that's usually not accessed when there isn't a drawdown. And so just segueing into my statement of intent about the river. The Ocklawaha has been a staple of Northern Florida culture for decades. Its identity is the heart and soul of the surrounding communities and part of their everyday lives. With a restored Ocklawaha River, the intent of this project is to create a new, rich, and robust river trail experience that can become a reality and bring new life to the surrounding human and natural communities, as well as its visitors. My main goals for the Restored Ocklawaha River Trail is to enhance and facilitate the river trail experience, tying that into freeing the Ocklawaha River in regards to restoration that will give opportunities to enhance this river trail experience. My objectives for this project, I have a couple of them, and I want to include new kayaks for boat, canoe, new locations for boat, kayak, and canoe launches, proposing new land trails and river access points to the Ocklawaha, providing multiple multi-day or single-day paddling trails for all visitors with camping and resting sites, including new fishing locations throughout the Ocklawaha, and that includes, of course, by boat, canoe, kayak, or also on the shoreline. Of course, like the previous group discussed, including manatee viewing or preferably boardwalk or platform viewing. And of course, last but not least, educational and recreational boat tours and use on the Ocklawaha as well with a more enhanced way. Just before I get started with my paddling trails, just kind of some basic Ocklawaha paddling. I made a little glossary of just the simple things that people might like to know about when you're looking at a map or paddling down a river. Some of the terminology is a hard launch, which is a drop-off site that has adequate hardscape or concrete slab for drop-off or takeout of a boat or other vessel. A soft launch is a drop-off or put-in site that caters to canoes, kayaks, and SUPs that does not use concrete. A fork, which is where a river splits. A put-in, which is a starting place of a river trip where you put your boat on the river to begin a run. And then also takeout, which is the access point for kayakers at the end of a section of river they're running. And then of course, just some symbology in regards to distance, time, duration, different use like restrooms and other options, side paddling on river trails, and also launches in general. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my overview maps of the Ocklawaha River for the river paddling trail that I'm proposing. As you can see, this is the upper part of the Ocklawaha, which starts at the Eureka West boat ramp and goes over towards Hog Valley, which is downstream. And as you can see, with a lot of different springs along the way, including Cannon Springs, Tobacco Patch, Riverside Springs, and also Payne's Landing. And then, of course, the Cypress Bayou Public Boat Ramp and its location near the Ocala National Forest and access to the different trails. The second one is the middle portion river, which I think is the most important and that has the most experiences along this portion of the restored river, or that would be restored, excuse me. Of course, having, you can see Orange Springs, Hog Valley, and then again, a lot of the different other springs along the way towards the Rodman Campground, as well as having the Kenwood Recreation Area, which is another boat ramp access point. And of course, Lake Ocklawaha KOA, which is a multi-use recreational space for people that are visiting. And then finally, the last portion of the river, which includes, again, the Rodman Campground, and then the natural part of the lower Ocklawaha River that goes, again, from Kirkpatrick all the way to the St. John's. And of course, along this side, this is a more organic and natural site that is definitely more natural with ecosystems, with it being more flooded with access. And as you can see, there's the State Road 19 road that goes over the Ocklawaha with a boat launch. And as you can see to the far east with Waka, the public boat ramps, and then also the springs along the St. John's. So on a restored Ocklawaha River Trail, what could you expect? Some of the things I'll talk about would be the restored character of the river with the communities that depend on it, the return of animal species that once called this part of Florida home, restored natural ecosystems that once thrived in this area, new paddling and river trail experiences at every turn, and of course, enhanced and diverse boat tour experiences for locals and visitors. So now I'm going to go ahead and dive into traversing the Ocklawaha River, which includes single and half-day paddling trip experiences. The first paddling trail is where you start, which is at the Ocklawaha River Outpost in Eureka, of course, with both those boat ramps, making your way to Cypress Bayou. And along this portion of this paddling trail on a restored Ocklawaha River, you would encounter a new primitive campground that connects with a proposed trail that connects to the Ocala National Forest through conservation lands, and also a primitive campground, and then making your way up the river, or excuse me, downriver from mile marker 3 to mile marker 6, where you can encounter the different springs through kayaking access and boats as well. Access will be much easier with a restored river. And then also it would include going up to the Cypress Bayou boat ramp, which is a soft and hard launch for multiple use. And then a little bit farther north, or a little bit farther north, on mile marker 12, I'm proposing a new, another new primitive campground near Payne's Landing on a high point where it's easy and accessible for camping. And of course, you can see to the east, again, the Ocala hiking trail and also the forest itself. And of course, along this stretch of the river, you would see lots of different plant species and animal species that call this area home, existing, and also species that would return. The second paddling trail is from Cypress Bayou to Hog Valley, and this paddling trail is about 8.5 miles in length. Of course, sightseeing and exploration opportunities would include primitive camping, lots of different sites with different ecosystems with animals and plants. Of course, a lot of access to different springs, hiking trails, and also different launches for canoes, kayaks, and boats. As you can see, I have multiple proposed river access trails on conservation lands that would allow for that access from mile markers 16 and 17 up towards Hog Valley. And then, of course, in the surrounding area of Orange Springs and the rest of the Ocklawaha. And I'll continue on my next paddling trail, which is this is from Hog Valley to the Rodman Recreation Area, or Kenwood, excuse me. The length of this paddling trail will be 7 miles in length. And of course, like the other paddling trails, some of the exploration possibilities and sightseeing would be primitive camps, springs, paddling trails, and of course, more proposed boat ramps and access to the river. And as you can see, you would continue to move through mile marker 20, 22, and to mile marker 24, where you can exit towards the Kenwood Recreation Area to end your trip. The next paddling trail is from Kenwood to the Rodman Campground, and this paddling trail is about 7 miles in length. And again, some of the exploration possibilities along this particular stretch from mile marker 24 to mile marker 31 would be a manatee viewing area, primitive campgrounds along the river, different spring use and access, as well as other access to land trails in the Ocala National Forest as well. The fifth paddling trail that I'm proposing is the Ocklawaha State Road 19 stretch of the river. And this particular portion is definitely more of an organic and natural part of the river that exists right now, but would be further primitive with the restoration of it. The length of this paddling trail is a little bit longer. It's about 10 miles in length. And of course, it starts from Kirkpatrick or Rodman, going downstream on the river, and you would have, again, a more primitive experience with different secondary channels along the main river with paddling trail rest platforms on this portion. This area of the river is, the topography is not as suitable for campgrounds as much, so I would propose these platforms. And as you can see along this river, you have the State Road 19 and boat launch, so you can either start at that point or have a takeout in that spot as well. And as you can see, going further downstream, the Ocklawaha and St. John's Juncture towards the Waka public boat ramp and also the different springs in the area. Now I'm going to go ahead and discuss the Ocklawaha River multi-day paddling trips that can be proposed with a restored river. The sixth one would be the Rodman Recreation Area to State Road 19. Again, this paddling trail from Rodman Campground to that site location is 12 miles. Again, like I've stated before, it would allow multi-use for paddlers, canoes, kayakers, and even boats as well. And also with these, of course, having the paddling platforms, lots of different views and bird watching and sightseeing, with lots of different benefits along this stretch. And of course, with the inclusion of fishing and fish that were not present in this area before restoration would have occurred. And then as you can see, going towards Sierra 19, where you can either start or end your trip. And so this is paddling trail number 7, and this one consists of the Eureka East and West launches where the Ocklawaha River Outpost is, all the way up to Hog Valley is one continuous trip, not stopping at Cypress Bayou. And the length of this paddling trail is 13 miles in length. And of course, a lot of the sightseeing exploration possibilities are similar throughout, but of course, having primitive campgrounds, access to springs, fishing opportunities on vessels as well as on the shoreline, and also visiting different springs where manatees call these areas home with a restored river, and also access to the Ocala National Forest if you choose to stop and take a break along the trip to do some hiking during the day. Oops, went too fast. The last paddling trail, and this is going to be paddling trail number 8, and this is from Orange Springs to the Rodman recreational area. Again, this paddling trail is about 11.5 miles in length. This is a part of the river, of course, that I've said before that would be that would have the most sightseeing opportunities and exploration opportunities that you would experience. Again, stated in my map. With a lot of different spring access, river trail access points that would be proposed, primitive campgrounds for a more natural experience of paddling along the river, as well as different sightseeing for animals and also species of plants that would return with a restored river. And then of course, to the north, there is a secondary channel or river that would be up near Deep Creek and Sweetwater where they branch off, which is another area you can access for paddling. And of course, but you would end your trip at mile marker 31 to the Rodman campground and boat ramp. And so just some of my closing thoughts on my presentation. With the future of the Ocklawaha at stake, what would be its draws with it being restored? Of course, like I said earlier, would be the restored character of the river with the communities that depend on it, the return of animal species that once called this area home, restored natural ecosystems that once thrived in this particular area of Florida. Of course, new paddling and river trail experiences that would enhance the local communities and also its culture and what it has to offer, and enhance and diverse boat tour experiences for the locals and visitors as well. And finally, I just wanted to leave off with a quote that I think can sum up for our class how important this project is to this particular part of Florida with this river and what we've accomplished thus far. And it's to never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And then these are my references. Thank you.